The account is already in the system when you find it. A FINRA referral came in at 6:47 this morning. Unusual options volume on a mid-cap pharmaceutical company. 340% above the 90-day baseline. 3 days before an FDA advisory panel decision. You are running the blue sheet data before anyone else has their first coffee. This is what you do. This is the only thing you have ever been particularly good at. You pull the trading records. You cross-reference the account IDs against prior surveillance alerts. 40 minutes. One account surfaces. A hedge fund manager in Connecticut. Options purchased through 3 nominee accounts routed through a Cayman Islands prime broker. Textbook. Sloppy. The kind of position that gets flagged by any examiner who knows what they're looking at. You know what you're looking at. You file the matter under inquiry by noon. The formal order follows in 3 weeks. Blue sheet subpoenaed from 7 broker-dealers. Sworn testimony taken over 2 days in a conference room with no windows. By the time the Wells notice goes out, the fund manager has hired 4 lawyers and is offering to cooperate. The SEC charges $4.2 million in illegal gains plus civil penalties. The case closes in 11 months. The commendation letter arrives on a Thursday. SEC letterhead. Division chief signature. It says your name. It says you demonstrated exceptional investigative skill and unwavering commitment to market integrity. You read it twice at your desk. You fold it back into the envelope. You take it out again and read it a 3rd time. You put it on your desk where you can see it. What the letter doesn't say, what no letter could say, is what happens to a person who reads blue sheets every day for 3 years, who pulls trading records before every major announcement, who sees every time, without exception, that someone was already there, that someone always knew, that the market is not a level playing field and has never been a level playing field, and the people you are catching are not anomalies. They are just the ones who were sloppy. You are not sloppy. You don't know yet what that means. You rotate into examinations, broker-dealer compliance reviews, on-site visits. You arrive with a checklist, a badge, and subpoena authority, and you go through records the way a surgeon reads a scan, looking for what isn't supposed to be there. What isn't supposed to be there is always there. The shell structures are the same across every firm you examine. A domestic LLC formed in Delaware or Wyoming. A foreign nominee listed as beneficial owner. A prime brokerage account in London or Zurich or Singapore that clears through a U.S. custodian. Trades placed through a sub-account that traces to a trust that traces to a foundation that traces eventually to the person sitting across the conference table from you in a very clean suit. You document it. You photograph the org charts. You write the examination report. The account structures go into the evidence file. But they also go somewhere else. Not deliberately. Not in a way you could articulate if someone asked. But in the part of your mind that solves problems while you sleep. Something is indexing the architecture. Which structures clear? Which jurisdictions take 18 months to respond to a subpoena, and which ones never respond at all? Which account types don't surface in a standard blue sheet pull? You are learning, examination by examination, the exact geometry of what works. You tell yourself this is professional knowledge. It is. You will be a better investigator for it. You are right about that. The formal order of investigation arrives on a Tuesday. A pharmaceutical company in New Jersey. Pre-announcement trading on an acquisition that hasn't been made public. FINRA flagged the options volume 11 days ago. You've been assigned the case. You pull the blue sheets on a Wednesday morning. 3 broker-dealers, 11 accounts. The pattern is visible before you finish the first file. One account stands out. A trust registered in Nevada. Options purchased 8 days before the acquisition announcement. 22 contracts. Strike price 11% below market. If held through the announcement date, The position is worth $73,400. The market opens in 4 hours. You sit with that number longer than you should. Your father's cardiac event was 7 months ago. 2 stents. 5 days in the ICU, 2 of them critical. The hospital bill arrives 6 weeks later. $91,000. You guaranteed it personally because he doesn't have coverage that covers this, and because you are the kind of person who does that, who has always done that, who signed the guarantee form without reading the total because there was no version of that moment where you didn't sign. The first payment came out of your checking account last month. It will come out every month for the next 6 years. The commendation letter is on your desk. You look at it. You read the line about unwavering commitment to market integrity. Then you open a brokerage account in your cousin's name. It takes 22 minutes. The account is funded through a wire from a savings account you opened in December. Before any of this, you tell yourself. Which is true, technically, which means nothing. You purchase 22 contracts, same strike price, different account, clean separation between the case file and the position. The acquisition is announced 6 days later. The stock moves 18% at open. You close the position before noon. Net profit, $73,400. Wired to a second account by end of day. The following week, the first payment to the hospital billing department goes out from that account. The $91,000 stays where it is. You didn't solve it. You made a payment. You tell yourself it was the last time. You believe it for 11 days. You are running cases now, not just working them. 4 junior analysts report to you. 12 open investigations in various stages. MUI, formal order, Wells notice. You see the full pipeline every morning. You know which announcements are coming before any press release hits the wire. The calendar in your head is no longer theoretical. An accounting fraud charge on a media company gets filed on a Friday. The stock drops 34%. You were short since Wednesday. Net gain, $41,200. A pharmaceutical investigation closes with no action, insufficient evidence, and you drafted the closing memo. The stock recovers. You were long since Monday. Net gain, $28,700. The system you build is not complicated. Complicated systems have too many points of failure. What you build is parallel. 2 identical operating procedures running simultaneously on 2 different sets of cases. On one track, the investigation. Subpoenas drafted, blue sheets analyzed, witness testimony scheduled, Wells notice timelines mapped. On the other track, the position. Sized against the expected price movement, entered at least 6 days before any public action, exited within 48 hours of the announcement. The 2 tracks never touch in any written record. They only touch inside your head. In a part of your working memory, you have learned to keep very quiet. You keep a second calendar, not digital. A pocket notebook, pages dated but unlabeled. 1 column for case milestones. 1 column for position entry and exit targets. The columns look like nothing to anyone who doesn't know what they're looking at. You have written the case milestone dates in the same handwriting as the position dates because that was always your risk, that you would organize it too cleanly, that the architecture would be its own signature. You review the notebook on Monday mornings before anyone arrives. You have been in this building at 6:15 a.m. every Monday for 19 months. Your supervisor has commented on your dedication twice. You received a favorable performance review in October. 22 trades. 19 months. $1.4 million across 3 accounts. The cousin's account has been closed. You now operate through a domestic trust registered under a family member's maiden name, a brokerage account opened through a Cypriot holding company, in a sub-account at a UK prime broker you first identified during an on-site examination 2 years ago. Each position is sized small enough. Each trade is explainable in isolation. No single account holds enough to trigger an automatic review threshold. You know this because you set those thresholds yourself. In a previous role. In a working group that spent 4 months determining exactly what size of position would be too small to flag. The commendation letter is still on your desk. You haven't moved it. You also haven't read it again. It's just a thing on your desk now. You supervise a team. You have CATS access, the case activity tracking system that shows every open matter in the enforcement division. Not just yours. Every MUI, every formal order, every case that is about to close with action, and every case that is about to close with nothing. Going long on a cleared company is cleaner than shorting a charged one. No announcement. No sharp movement. A stock that quietly recovers after a case closes without charges. Normal volume. Explainable price action. Nothing in the pattern that looks like what it is. A junior analyst on your team is named Rivera. She has been with the division 14 months. She works the way you worked 14 months in. Methodically, without gaps, with the specific kind of intelligence that shows up as the right question at the right time. One afternoon, she comes to your office with a pharmaceutical sector screen. Unusual clustering of options volume across a 6-week window. Tight around announcement dates, but not the same company each time. A pattern she can't explain. She asks whether you think it warrants escalation to a formal MUI or whether she's chasing noise. You look at the screen. You recognize the pattern immediately. You've seen it before. In your own trading records, 3 accounts removed. You tell her it's a false positive. Seasonality in pharmaceutical options volume. Common in Q3, tied to FDA advisory calendar cycles. Worth noting, but not worth escalating. She makes a note in her case file and thanks you. You go back to your office and close 2 positions before the market closes that afternoon. On the corner of your desk, the commendation letter is face down. You don't remember turning it over. You didn't make a decision about it. It's just face down now. You are in the meetings where enforcement priorities get shaped. Which sectors get investigative resources? Which cases get accelerated? Which ones slow down because the evidence is thin, or the political exposure of a high-profile charge against a certain kind of institution is complicated right now? You are a voice in those decisions. The broker's name is never said out loud. The introduction happened at a compliance conference in Chicago 18 months ago. A former colleague. A conversation about market microstructure that lasted 12 minutes. A number exchanged at the end. The arrangement is never explicit. You describe positions in terms of timing and direction. A window, a direction, a size. The broker asks no questions. The broker executes through a network of accounts that exist in a jurisdiction that has not responded to a U.S. subpoena in 4 years. The broker takes 8% of net gains, wired to an account you will never see documentation for. You have never used the word insider in any communication with them. You have never had to. The broker has done this before. They will do it after you are gone. What 31 months actually looks like. You stop going to certain restaurants because you have started calculating whether the people at the next table could identify you if asked. You decline 3 conference invitations that would have been career-defining 2 years ago. You miss your father's follow-up cardiology appointment because it is on the same morning you need to unwind a position before a healthcare sector announcement, and you cannot be unreachable for 3 hours, and you tell him you had a court appearance. He says it is fine. You pay his February billing statement from the holding account. He thanks you. He does not ask where the money is coming from. You do not tell him. The operation total is $3.1 million, 41 trades, 31 months, 2 foreign accounts, 1 domestic trust, 1 Delaware LLC registered under a name you chose in a parking garage off Route 1 because it was the first non-personal name you thought of that had no visible connection to you.
The drawer to the left of your desk has a commendation letter in it. You put it there during an office reorganization and didn't take it out. You haven't opened the drawer since. The last person in this building who still knows you as the investigator that letter was written about is a junior analyst 2 floors down. Her name is Rivera. She doesn't know that. You are not going to tell her. The FINRA flag comes in on a Monday. Anomalous clustering. Options volume correlating with SEC enforcement announcement windows across a 27-month period. Precise enough to suggest informational advantage from inside the commission. The Market Abuse Unit opens a matter under inquiry. You see it in CATS before anyone tells you. The assigned examiner isn't on your team. The file is 2 floors down. You check CATS 3 times that day. 4 times on Tuesday. By Wednesday, you have mapped the full sequence. Which broker-dealers will receive blue sheet requests? In what order? Which account tiers will surface first? How many weeks between the initial subpoenas and the first substantive responses? You have run this sequence from the other side of the table for 11 years. You know every step before it happens. You begin unwinding. 41 positions reversed across 6 weeks. Size below automatic review thresholds. Systematic enough to complete before the first blue sheet response comes back. Done exactly the way you would do it if you were the investigator running this case. Which you are, in a way. You are the best investigator this case has. You take different routes to work, you stop carrying your personal phone into the building, you eat lunch at your desk, you notice cars that appear more than once on the same block. You notice faces on the same platform 2 mornings in a row. You stop going to the coffee area on your floor because it requires walking past Rivera's office, and you are not certain anymore of what your face does when you are not thinking about your face. You scan rooms before you speak in them. You look at every colleague with a calculation running quietly behind your eyes. What do they know? What could they know? What would they say if someone with a badge and a formal order asked them directly? The MUI escalates to a formal order of investigation on a Thursday. The assignment is updated in CATS that evening. You check it from a personal device you drove 14 miles to use, parked in a lot you've never parked in before. The assigned investigator is Rivera. You are not named in the formal order. Not yet. You know the timeline. You have written enough Wells notices to map the sequence from the inside. Blue sheet analysis. 6 to 8 weeks. Third-party subpoenas for foreign accounts. 12 to 16 weeks if the Cypriot custodian responds at standard pace. Sworn testimony requests. 8 to 10 weeks after first findings are documented. The Wells notice itself comes at the end, before the commission votes. You have perhaps 10 weeks before your name appears in a document you will not be able to read before it's filed. You go home and sit in rooms without turning on lights. You try to find the version of yourself that exists outside the operation, and you cannot locate it. The job is the operation. The operation is the job. There is no clean edge between them. You used to know where you ended and where the investigation began. That distinction is gone. You cannot remember the last time you did something that wasn't connected to either building the operation or protecting it. Rivera mentions the case over coffee. Not your coffee. The break room on the floor below. You are there for the first time in 6 weeks because you told yourself you needed to appear normal, and normal people get coffee. She is getting tea. She is talking about the case the way a junior investigator talks about a significant assignment. Focused, slightly electric, with the controlled energy of someone who knows they are looking at something real. She asks whether you've ever seen clustering patterns this precise before. Whether you think it's one actor operating alone or a coordinated network using cutouts. You say it looks like a single actor with network infrastructure. Probably offshore holding structures with domestic clearing accounts. Probably someone with real-time access to enforcement timelines. You say it without hesitation. You mean every word. It is the most accurate analysis you have given in 11 years. You have never been more qualified to give it. You go back to your office. You close the door. You sit down. The drawer is open. The commendation letter is gone. You threw it out 3 weeks ago during what you told yourself was an office reorganization. You were not reorganizing. You draft a resignation letter that afternoon, 2 paragraphs, your name, a date, a sentence about moving on to other opportunities. You read it. You close the file without saving. 6 weeks later, Rivera presents the blue sheet findings to the division chief on a Thursday morning. The first account flagged is the Delaware LLC. The name on the registration is not yours, but the trading pattern tied to it is a fingerprint. She walks through the correlation analysis, the dates, the announcement windows, the account,
architecture across 3 jurisdictions. She has built the same case you would have built. She has built it in 43 days. You are in the building when the presentation happens. You are on the same floor. You are reading a case file on a healthcare company and making notes in the margins in your same handwriting. With your same pen, because you still have open cases, because you are still branch chief, because the surface hasn't broken yet, and until it does, you are still the person who does this work. You know the approximate time the presentation is scheduled. You looked at Rivera's calendar this morning. Branch chief access, routine review of team schedules, nothing unusual. 9:15 a.m. conference room on the south side of the floor. You can hear very faintly when the door opens and closes. At 9:15, you pick up your pen. You write a note about a healthcare company's audit committee composition that you will not remember writing. At 9:18, you put the pen down. At 9:31, you pick it up again. At 10:07, you hear the conference room door. Voices in the corridor. 2, maybe 3. Professional, not urgent. The kind of voices that belong to people who have just seen something significant and are processing whether to say so out loud. You hear Rivera's voice once. A single sentence, then nothing. You do not look up from the case file. By end of day, the investigation will have a second name on the assignment. Not yours. Not yet. The blue sheet responses from the Cypriot custodian will arrive in 11 weeks. Your name will appear in the account registry on page 4 of the 3rd brokerage response. Rivera will find it on a Tuesday afternoon, in the same way you have found 100 names across a dozen years, by pulling the thread until the architecture reveals itself. She is very good. You trained her to be. The system doesn't need you anymore. It just needs someone who already knows how it works.